Hi there, my name's Anna, and in today's painting tutorial we're going to be painting a swan using mostly black India ink and a little bit of watercolour. So as you can see, I am sketching out my swan here, and I'm mostly suggesting the shape of the swan and I'm suggesting some of the feathers. You can find this reference photo over on Pixabay if you want to paint the exact same one. Otherwise, you can find a different swan. Doesn't have to be the exactly same one to get a similar effect. I just like the shape of this one, so that's why I chose this reference photo. So I'm finished my sketch now, and I'm starting to paint in the background using black India ink, and this ink is permanent, so it's important to wash your brush on time before the bristles start clogging up and getting sticky. As I'm using an expensive watercolor brush here, that's especially important, and I do hope I didn't ruin this one. It's a nice large round brush that comes to a very fine point, so I can also work around the fine details of the swan's feathers without any problem, but I can also fill in large areas with paint or ink in this case. Really painting in the background all black is my favorite part of the painting process for such paintings. So I'm painting in some other black portions of the bird now, the hump on the beak of the bird, and I'm starting to suggest some of the ripples on the water, just using pure black ink. The ink will dry relatively fast, and you can paint and glaze over it then. What you can't do is really a lot of blending or softening your lines once you've put them down, except if you're very quick. The exception would be if you're working wet into wet, then the ink will kind of flow a little more and you won't have as harsh edges. As you can see here, I'm preserving kind of the middle of the paper is meant to stay lighter because it's the reflection of the white swan in the water. I'm just using very diluted ink on this area of the painting, and I'm just diluting my ink with a lot of water. Here you can see I'm kind of painting a little bit wet into wet. I'm not quite sure if that was intentional at that stage or if I was just a bit impatient to put down the next layer of ink. But a wet into wet technique would definitely work in this area of the painting to suggest just the movement of the water. So I'm starting to work on the body of the swan a little and going in back into the water, darkening the water ripples a little, glazing over the ones I already had put down. So for the swan, the feathers on the neck of the swan and the front portion of him, I'm just using little sketchy lines, and for the larger feathers on the tail, I'm just using basically U shapes. To indicate the shadows of the feathers. Painting in the eye of the swan now. The front portion of the neck of the swan close to the head is what's most in shadow, that portion of the swan. So I will go over that a couple of times. As you can see, just a load of sketchy lines there. And in end effect, I'm just following my reference photo to see where the larger feathers are and the shadows on them. But it doesn't have to be exactly the same as on the reference. Not every individual feather has to be exact. And that's what I love about painting with black ink. You finish the painting process fairly quickly. I mean, I think I only took about an hour or an hour and a half for this entire painting, and I think that's fairly fast because you're not worrying about all of the different colors. You're just thinning down your paint for lighter areas. Just monochromatic painting can be a lot of fun. So I keep building up the layers and going over areas again and again. Here I'm painting in, or I have painted in the feathers in the background. The large feathers of the wing are very defined and long. And I just keep adding more contrast, more shadow to certain areas. The cheek of the bird is the only area really where I'm not painting in lines, but I've painted in a bit of a shadow on the entire cheek. You could also use black watercolor for this. You don't have to use Indian ink, especially on the swan. It might make it a little easier. And I can't remember exactly. I might have even used some black watercolor in some areas, because the advantage is you can blend it better. It doesn't stay down permanent. But for the background, of course, it's nice to use the Indian ink because it gives you this really, really dark black. And I just keep adding more and more feathers and slowly building up my textures. But the swan already looks a lot like a swan at this point. And like I said, I just really like the shape of this bird and the way his feathers are kind of encircling him and his head is bent over. By the way, I hope you're enjoying this video, and if you do, please remember to give me a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel. That would really help me out, and I'd be very grateful for that. Great thing about this painting is also that you can save a lot of work by just leaving a large portion of this bird entirely white. And now I'm using some orange watercolour for a pop of colour there on the beak as contrast to the rest of the black and white painting. And I'm nearly finished now at this point, so I'm going to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon in one of my next videos. So take care and bye bye.